Okay, we're live. Hey, everybody, I'm the host of Level Up, Wayman Daniels, and welcome to this evening show podcast with a very special guest, Mr. Minister Kenneth Mohammed. We're going to talk about going from boys to men. Minister Kenneth Mohammed, before we bring you in, we just want to pause just for a moment, maybe for 5 or 6 seconds, and then bring you in and then tell everyone a little bit about you and your background. So let's just pause just for a brief moment. Minister Kenneth Mohammed, you guys. Welcome to the show. How are you doing this evening?
Man, I am doing wonderful, busy as always. I was grateful that I could take a day off yesterday to just acknowledge, nature around me, brother. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. It's been a long time. I'm so glad to have you on the show. I saw you, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
At Men Under Construction at North Street, which was very powerful, by the way. And we discussed talking about you coming on to talk about the upcoming event that you're having. I believe it's December 3rd. Am I correct?
That's correct.
And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Minister Kenneth Mohammed?
Well, just as most young men grow up, starting out on the rough side of the mountain, going back to those days where we would play sandlot football, until we joined an official Pop Warner team.
Yes.
Just, growing up in the hood, man. And, about 30 some years ago, I came across a dynamic teacher, a dynamic leader in his own right, Minister Farrakhan. And, from that day on, as a young, just turning 18 years of age, after hearing what I heard that night, it just totally changed my direction in terms of where, I wanted to go for the rest of my life. And, by God's grace, it's been up, it's been down, but I'm still in it, and I'm in it to win it, to be an example, to our community, that no matter where you are at with your station in life, you can always change it.
I like what you said, because you said where you're at, no matter what station in life you are at, you can always change it. Now, a lot of people, because we can go, let's just talk. Let's just have some real dialogue, one black man to another black man, or another man to another man, because we understand the plight, the scheme, and the opposed situation and circumstances that you have to deal with by being raised in a black community into an impoverished community. And sometimes we lose hope in the struggle. How do we get that hope back when we don't see hope in our community? How do we bring hope back into our families and back into our lives and back into our community?
Well, the first thing, my teacher taught me is that we have to rekindle hope within ourselves. And hope, is something that you don't always see in yourself, but it's there. And the more you feed on the word, rather you're a Christian, rather you're a Muslim, or just don't subscribe to any religion, but just a conscious person, in reading our history and how great we are as a people, will give us the springboard, the motivation to be able to not focus on the present, but be in the present, but see the future. And that's what keeps me going, is the words from my teacher, who reminds me every day that I pick up the literature and feed myself. Just as we would feed our physical body, we have to feed our souls. We have to feed our mind in order for us to sustain the spiritual, the mental, as well as the physical. And I know that's easy said for some, but it's a reality for others as well.
Well, you just mentioned, and I'm going to use this acronym, PMS, physical, mental, and spiritual. So it sounds like our community is having a PMS problem, that we'll keep up with the physical, but we are lack in the mental and negate the spiritual. And so when you talk about reading all of this literature, a lot of us in our community have a bibliophobia, an abnormal fear of reading, because we have been engraved or institutionalized with that we should not read. So we limit our reading. We want to be entertained, but we don't want to be informed. How do we get to the place where we want to be informed and not entertained and being bamboozled by the entertainment, which causes us to deflect and not look at our present to go to our future?
It's a good question, brother. And, that's the work that many of us are engaged in on a daily basis. I can speak for me.
Yes.
My teacher has taught me to be engaged on a daily basis, yes, feeding our community, encouraging our community to read, to be an example. The old saying, if you want to keep something from Black folk, just put it in a book. Well, we wasn't always like that as a people.
Right.
We were a people of great history. We was a people of great science. We was a people of great mathematics, and we still are. It's just a few of us, and we have to encourage the masses, and we really have to start with us as parents. Be an example. If your children are looking at you, they should find you reading. That's what I did with my children. Whenever they looked and whenever they see, they found their father reading a book, and that inspired them to read a book. And I want to say this, brother Wayman, that a lot of our people now are beginning to move in that direction. They realize the value is not just in making money. They realize the value is not just in having something nice to wear or nice to put on. They are now realizing that the value of knowledge is invaluable, and that's something that nobody can take from you. Well, it can take money from you, as you and I are witnessing with our brother Kyrie Irving and Yee. But Kyrie, I want to go back to him, because here is a brother who is a professional basketball player, but yet inspiring to learn more about himself. But unfortunately, he got in trouble. And that's a message in itself as to some of the stumbling and roadblocks when we do desire to know ourselves and do better for ourselves. So there are stumbling blocks as well. And one of those stumbling blocks, unfortunately, is our own ignorance of our own history and culture. And the other stumbling block is those who does not desire for us to know our culture or our history or even our spiritual background.
Well, I want to go here because I love this word philosophy. Philosophy is the love of wisdom. And so, like what you were saying, if we can go back and fall in love with philosophy and love learning, but I also want to go back to this movie, Minister Muhammad, that I saw when I was young. It was called Roots. There was a character in there by the name of Kunta Kinte. And they tried to enslave Kunta Kinte physically, but they couldn't enslave him mentally. He still tried to free himself from the chains that kept him physically bound. And they kept chopping off this and kept chopping off that. That's the same thing they're doing with Kyrie Irving. He's trying to free a lot of people, but they're trying to castrate him in public in front of his family to say, if you get out of line, we can do this to you too, because you're not unreachable. Because you're a multimillionaire or almost a billionaire status, we can still touch you and affect your bottom line, which is your family, and bring you. What they're trying to do is to bring him to an open shame. But what about the person that put out the movie, that's profiting off the movie, who's a billionaire? Now you want to castrate me in public, but nothing's being said and done about him. So now here we go back again, Minister Muhammad. They're coming in with the fear factor. We can't hang you on a tree literally now, but we still can castrate you in public before the whole world. What can you say to those that are afraid to make a stand because of what's happening to Kyrie, what's happening to Yeezy, and so forth and so forth?
Well, the Bible says it like this. I think I read it from the words of Jesus, who was one of the greatest thinkers and is one of the greatest thinkers. He said, fear him, referring to God, who can kill body and soul. The only thing that man can do is kill you physically, but the ideas that you inherit from your teachers, They can't destroy that. So they want to put fear in men like Kyrie, men like Ye, just men in general who desire to know their history, to know themselves. So you have to work against the opposition that is opposing you. And regardless to what you lose, you can never lose who you really are if you stand. But if you give in, then you can lose that which is more precious than money, more precious than gold, more precious than silver, and that is you.
That's right. Now, I like what you said because my mind is all over the place and I'm thinking about the ones, and let's just say this word, but we use it in a context where it's not being disrespectful or putting down anyone. But I never forget when you have the house, let's just say house person and field person. The house person thinks he's better than the field person because he's sitting with the master, eating the scraps of the master and in the master's house. But he looks down on the field person because the field person does not have that privilege that he has. But the house person thinks he has favor. But the bottom line, he's still a black person. So when I think about Kyrie, when I think about Yeezy, who are now, they call him the field person versus the house person, where all these other celebrities in society come up against them, saying the narrative that they were taught from the master. How do we dispel that and still yet build up those who are doing it? Are they doing it ignorantly, or are they doing it because they love materialistic things and what they have versus having the freedom to be who they truly are?
Well, I don't think, brother, as our minister has said on November the 10th, when he addressed this controversy with Kyrie and Ye, a lot of our people are just afraid, regardless to how much money they have. So they subconsciously and consciously operate out of their fear for those who have the power, apparent power to call in the riches that they help our brothers and sisters to attain.
Yes.
So, I don't think they deliberately, it's just that fear factor that causes us to react to situations rather than reason with the situation and see it from brothers' perspective, other than just seeing it from others' perspective. And so, it causes individuals like Kyrie, Ye, as Malcolm went through, as Martin Luther King went, all of our great leaders. It puts pressure on them to capitulate to a degree, so it makes the rest of us who don't have that type of courage to put pressure on them, so perhaps they may cool things down when things begin to get really, really hot. And that has always been the chorus of the slaves who was in the house. They always sung what master sung. They always, when they master got sick, they say, "We sick." Because they feel what the master feel rather than feel what they should feel and how the slave in the field actually felt. And Malcolm made that distinction about, I'm going to say it, brother. He said the field Negro.
That's right. That's right.
In the house Negro. Well, we still have. In 2022, we still have some field Negroes.
Right.
And we still got some house Negroes. Well, I'm borderline because I'm working my way up the chain to be one of those field Negroes. Because I just can't go along with what I know is not right.
That's right.
What I know does not represent who I am and who I want to be. And if you are standing in my way to get freedom, justice, and equality and access to power, then I have to speak up as a man.
Right, right. So, Minister Muhammad, for those that are dealing with, let's talk about the violence that's happening in our community. And after we talk about the violence in our community, we're going to segue to boys becoming men. Let's address the violence that's happening not only in our city, but around the world, or even in the United States for that matter, the black on black crime. Not only the violence of black on black crime with killing, but what about the abortions that are happening in the black family? What about the sexual assaults that are happening in our Black family? What about the child abuse that's happening in the Black family? How can we address these issues? Because they want to focus on just one narrative, Black crime, but there's more to this than just Black on Black crimes and shootings in our community. But also, here's another question that I want you to address after. Let's talk about the food deserts that's happening in our community, how strategically they took out certain things in our neighborhood so that we can't be healthy, and put in certain things so that we can have sugar, diabetes, high blood pressure, and so forth and so forth. So let's talk about the violence.
Well, I will say this, brother, as you know, now my teacher has taught us, and his teacher has taught him, you know, right out of slavery, right out of Reconstruction, you know, you saw Black people making major power moves. 14 years out of Reconstruction, we had independent towns.
Yes.
So when I share this with some of our people, they're surprised that we had independent towns that Black people found and built up, and nearly 60, I believe my teacher taught me.
Yes.
So the potential to do something for ourselves has always been a part of who we are. That's how we operate, right? We've always been able to take nothing and make something out of it. So we took what we had, we pooled our resources, and we went to work to build up our communities wherever those towns and those cities began to be built up. But it was the federal government who allowed the Ku Klux Klan to ride in and burn those towns. And our young people, see, they don't know this type of history,
right?
Because they're not being taught properly in the schools so that they will have a better sense and a healthy respect for themselves and for what they people have suffered. We've been disconnected, and we've been disconnected in such a way that we don't even want to know that history. What other people don't want to know their history, and how that history is the springboard for whatever they attempt to accomplish in life in the future for that people. So they disconnected us, man, and allowed the Ku Klux Klan to rise up and to thwart any progress that we would make. And this came from the highest office of these so-called United States of America. They called out the federal troops that was in these southern states that was supposed to offer us protection, but they didn't.
Well, let's go here, because now we're talking about things that have happened and what we previously owned, and talked about the power that we have. But let's just talk about this just for a moment. We're yet the poorest, so they say, of all ethnicities, but we spend the most money out of every demographics out there. But my question to you is, why do we have such an identity crisis? And why do we think that we are a part of the master's house because we still want to wear the master's brand? Let's just talk about Nike, for example. If you don't wear Nikes or a name brand, I don't feel like I'm a part of anything. If I don't drive a Mercedes or a BMW, then I don't have any value or worth. We're still walking around with that slave mentality, not even understanding on the conscious level this is what we're doing, because we still want to be a part of the master by wearing his brand. So how do we get to the place where we disassociate ourselves from that and say, you know what, I don't need the master's brand to feel like I'm a human being?
It's a good point, brother. And, you know, we have had this conversation, and we probably will continue, unfortunately, to have this conversation until the mentality of Black folk change. And I know it can change. It changed for me. See, I mean, at that stage, I could wear Nike and not allow Nike to wear me.
Come on, say it again.
You know, I could wear Adidas and not allow Adidas to wear me.
That's right.
Because when you begin to learn who you are, that becomes the priority. Clothes are not the priority. I believe the great Jesus said, huh? Don't think about what you're gonna put on.
That's
Don't
right.
think about what you're gonna eat. See, when you so confined to what you're gonna eat, what you're gonna wear, then you are on just a materialistic level, which is the basic primitive level of life. You haven't even discovered what life is until you can grow beyond just what you see with your physical eyes. And everything that we see is not always what we see.
That's right. Well, you know what? I like that what you just said. Everything we see is not what we see. Because they have two movies out now. One is the Black Panther. The other one is the Woman King. But they'll make you believe that we're trying to uplift the black race by having an all-black cast. They'll make you believe that they're in support of you, but the bottom line is they're trying to, they don't figure out how much money I can make off you because you still don't know who you are. You're searching for who you are through entertainment and not separating entertainment from truth. And so let's talk about that, because sometimes what you just said, what you see is not necessarily what it's supposed to be, what you really see. It's a hidden agenda even behind that. So how do we get to the place, Minister Muhammad, that we see behind the screen or behind the veil and see what's really going on? The Black Lives Movement, as a matter of fact, all that money that went into the Black Lives Movement was never put back into the black community. It was founded by some rich people who kept the money. But we followed a Black Lives Movement thing, not understanding and not really investigating what was going on. We were moving by emotion, but we were not strategic. How do we get to the place where we stop being bamboozled and allowing people to use us to make a profit instead of us using ourselves to become what you're talking about, have our own districts and have our own money, have our own banks and have our own towns, and use our power to become unified instead of becoming divided?
Well, brother, one of the things that the dominant European society has done, and they have done so effectively, you know, we have discussions among ourselves as black men. We have discussions among ourselves of the men of the Nation of Islam. Yes. And we always say they run the same play.
That's right.
They don't change their plays. They call the same play. It seems like we haven't understood the plays that they've been calling, right? But you see the movement is just as you said. You see the movement now, you know, towards uplifting black people. But it's not to uplift us.
That's right.
It's to use us.
Exploit us. That's right.
Exploit us. And that's what they continue to do, is get a few of us and lift us up and say, here's what we're doing for black people. But you're not doing it for the masses of our people. So in our lessons, we are taught, the question is asked, why does the devil, the enemy, keep our people illiterate? The answer we was taught was that so that he can use them.
That's right.
As a tool and also a slave. So, brother, wait a minute, if I go and pick up a hammer, the hammer ain't got nothing to say.
That's right.
If I pick up a screwdriver, the screwdriver ain't got nothing to say. It's there to help me to accomplish an end or an objective that I have in mind. And unfortunately, we don't control or write policies.
That's right.
It's the dominant one who writes policies and controls policies. So they invite us into the room to play a role, but we may not necessarily know what they have in mind. So you see the movement now. And it's all designed to master us and to master the masses of our people and make our people think that we are making movements now towards real liberation. But it's going to fall apart, brother. No matter what they do. It's like trying to mix clay, which the Bible talks about, miry clay. You can't mix it with, I think it's water. I think the book of Daniel talked about, you know, the big biblical scholars are out there. You know what your brother is trying to say. It's going to fall apart. and it's going to fall apart very soon. And this is why, going back to Kyrie and Ye, this is why the masses of those who have been in control for so long are upset with those brothers, because they're beginning to peel back some of that madness and some of that thievery and robbery that they've been doing for so many years. So they don't want other artists to peep these contracts, but they're beginning to do it.
Right, because I was listening to, as a matter of fact, I was listening to David Chappelle, and when Prince changed his name to the artist, a lot of people don't know that he changed his name to the artist because that's what they refer to them in their contracts.
Interesting.
And so when you think about it, he says now what they do, they put terminology in there that you don't understand because you don't know the language, and they would bamboozle you. And so what happened with Prince was coming to an understanding of what they was doing. And this is why certain things took place, in not only in his life, Michael Jackson's life, Bernie Mac's life, and Whitney Houston's life. And so, but then here's another thing, listening to the late Dick Gregory. The late Dick Gregory stated, and he said that the reason that they really put Bill Cosby in jail because they didn't want that Negro to have a national television station, Channel 8, NBC, which that means everybody can get hold to. They don't care about Oprah Winfrey because you got to pay cable money to see Oprah Winfrey. But they did not want Bill Cosby to have a main station because he would have been too open for people to have access to him. So that's why they castrated him in public. I'm not saying whatever I don't know if it was right or wrong what he did. I don't know if it was facts or fictional. All I know, they put him in jail to stain his name. And this is what they're still doing. And this is what you were talking about earlier, that people are afraid. Now, let's just segue just for a moment and talk about the violence in the community, because I work out in the community as an advocate. And a lot of things that are going on in our community, a lot of people saying, I don't know why it's happening. But I can understand why it's happening to a degree, because when you've been oppressed for so long and you've been stepped on for so long, you are angry.
Yes.
But then also people are being programmed to do what they're doing. Because when I say program, we got to look at also the entertainment industry. We also got to look at how they took the father out of the home. We also got to look at how they devalue the father. The women devalue not only themselves, but they devalue their husbands or their spouses. And so when you're dealing with this mass, let's just say, deconstruction of the family, it's a lot of anger and hurt there. So how do we get people to heal and no longer be a part of the problem, but become a part of the solution? Because a lot of them, Minister Muhammad, are out there, are so afraid. I got an 11-year-old daughter who's afraid to go to school. She shouldn't be dealing with that.
Right. And that's where I would start where you ended. That's the orchestration, is to create fear in our community.
Right.
So that we are so paralyzed by fear that we don't go out in our community. But if you look around and you see the building up around our community, somebody is there.
That's right.
And somebody has planned to be there and be there for a while. So we see what's happening. We may not be able to put our finger on it. But if you watch it for a period of time, you will see who's starting to now not infiltrate, but now move into our communities in the surrounding areas. And it has always been, Brother Wayman, when they desire to take a certain area, they create the conflict.
That's right.
And foster the conflict by creating gangs, creating organizations, and putting brother against brother. And we have witnessed this throughout our so-called lifetime, because we still here.
That's right.
But we know enough to know that this is fomented. This is being driven by a machine, even though we may not realize it, but we are so ignorant to what is really going on.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I believe, brother, that part of it is being fostered. the violence in our community. I believe that.
That's right.
I may not be able to prove it through data, but I can say without a shadow of a doubt what I believe. And help those who don't believe what I believe prove that I'm wrong. Putting brother against brother. Look, man, the school system is so far removed from reality that it's not even funny. Right. Our young people that don't want to be there, they ain't not learning nothing. They want to know who they are. And to stop this violence, we have to step it up with replacing ignorance with knowledge. And when I go into schools, you in the community, you can hear a pin drop when we go into the schools and talk to our young people, the ones that they so-called say are troubled young people. Huh? I go in every other week into the jail system along with some of our ministers from our mosques. And these young brothers are so respectful and they just soaking up the knowledge. And some may say, well, they ain't got nowhere to go. Well, they shouldn't have been there the first time if we would have got to them before they got there. So we have to step it up as well. The truth tellers.
That's right.
And tell the truth that our young people can know the reality of what has happened and what is happening and what will continue to happen if they themselves are not unplugged from the system. And I'll end with this, brother. I read in the book of Matthew. I thought it was so powerful that Jesus gave a command to his disciples. He said, there's a coat over there. I want you to go and untie the coat. And the disciples, you can tell from the conversation, they was a little nervous about doing what the master teacher instructed them to do. Because they was, you think we should, he said, well, tell them the master has a need for them. See, young people are needed right now.
That's right.
And if they know that they already are born with a purpose, they wouldn't do this stuff that they're doing. They'll turn them guns and drop them things, man, and pick up something else and understand how nature and the universe and God work. I don't know if you caught that.
I did.
That's gun spelled another way. Huh? Nature, the universe, and God.
That's
and
right.
I have to give credit to my brother KRS-One who broke that down. So I don't want to plagiarize. I got to give credit to my brother. We can turn guns around into them studying their nature. We can turn it around to them studying the universe. Because my teacher teaches us that whenever you look at a black man, you in fact are looking at God himself. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean? The Bible says we're created in the image and the likeness of God. Then you mean to tell me I can look like God? Yes, you can. Well, why would the Bible say children are the most high God? So we got to show our young people how connected they are by nature to the universe and to God. So back to Jesus. He told the disciples, go and unloose them. Our young people are tied to this life of crime right now.
Right.
But they're not satisfied with where they at. Our young people are tied to money and fame. Because when you're born in the hood,
right.
When you're born broke, you're thirsty, man.
Right.
When you wake up and there's nothing to eat, you're hungry, man. So our young people are thirsty, and there are forces who have now identified how thirsty our young people is, and loyalty ain't nothing to them, unfortunately, because I gotta survive. And I'll do anything that it takes to survive, but that's not the nature in which God wants things to go. So those of us who have knowledge, like those disciples, we got to go and unloose our young people and tell them, man, you have an aim. Man, you got a purpose. And God has sent me to help you to realize your aim and your purpose. And so whatever price that we got to pay, Brother Wayman, to unloose our young people, then we should be willing to pay that price, because they really are our future, and not no cliche or not no slogan. They are the future, and the enemy knows they are the future. Now listen to this, my brother. The Israeli government, I just recently read this, they was opposing the Palestinian youth because they realized when they went to those areas that they are trying to occupy, they was running into the youth. It wasn't the old people out there throwing rocks and throwing bottles. It was the young people. So they figured they would find different ways to induce the young people to give up the struggle for freedom.
Right.
But what they realized, no matter what they offered the young Palestinians, if it wasn't freedom, they didn't want it.
Right.
They didn't want it. So we got to offer our young people something.
Well, here's a question, because I like what you said about they offered them something, but they didn't want it because they wanted freedom. What can we offer our young people that they want this freedom, that they can be the community and the persons that we know they can be, because they have been trained and conditioned for materialistic things for so long and have been enslaved for so long? I go back to the Willie Lynch letter.
Yes.
When I even just think about that, and a lot of people think about that letter, but that letter is still working today. If you just allow me to train them, they will always be slaves. Some people, Minister Muhammad, believe they're doing what they want to do, but not understanding that they have been conditioned or trained to do certain things without even thinking. I was walking the other day. Let me show you a perfect example, because I'm a former drug addict. And I've been clean for years now. And I was walking to school and I saw a cigarette butt on the ground. I used to pick up cigarette butts off the ground and smoke them because I didn't have any. And I don't even smoke. And my first instinct was to pick up the cigarette butt. I said, wow, I haven't smoked cigarettes or done drugs in years. But that psychological conditioning of poverty stepped in, and I'm not going to even say almost took control, but that thought came. And I've been working to be free for so long, but then that thought came. But how do we get to our people not to give into the thought of the temptation, even though we're so used to the environment and being poor and being hungry? How do we get to the place where you know what I'm thinking about right now, Minister Muhammad? We say that it takes a village or a community to raise a child. We say that, a lot of people say that loosely. But if we really meant that, when we see a family struggling and that's hungry, we that have surplus would go to that family and say, here, take this while you're going through. Let me help you get past this struggle. Let me help you try to make money. Let me try to help you through your desert experience. But we don't do that anymore. You know what they do now, Minister Muhammad? They talk about them. They'll say that child is bad in school, but that child's not bad. That child is dealing with some conditions and issues that he's afraid to talk about because he don't want to be looked down upon as being weak. How do we get our young men to say, you know what, man, I'm hurting, I need help? How do we get to that place?
You know, brother, as you was finishing your comment, you know, what came to me as I was listening to you is that Jesus, whenever he seen the multitude, the book say he was moved with compassion. And what's missing, unfortunately, man, is compassion, man, for a fellow human being, regardless to color. Compassion. And that's what's missing. And then two, you know, I call it the first responders. And until we are healed, the people who need us can't be healed.
That's right.
So sometimes as teachers and ministers and advocates and whatnot, we have to constantly work on ourselves so that we don't lose our compassion for the movement, our compassion for people, our compassion for life. And I tell you, brother, that don't take money. But money begins to become the weight, the drag that robs us of our compassion because we're trying to survive. We're trying to pay bills. We're trying to keep a roof over our heads. And you hear it sometimes. Man, listen, I understand, but man, I got to eat too.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's what has happened. Those who are supposed to be the first responders are no longer responding as we should respond. If you choose to be a responder, then you chose that position because you had a sense of what it required and what it demands from you. As a first responder, you may not always get a thank you.
That's right.
As a first responder, you may not drive the BMW. You may not live in the nice mansion, but the first responder never goes unrewarded for what he or she does. It's a painful process, brother. And unfortunately, many who started out as a first responder are no longer responding with compassion.
With compassion.
So when we come across a young person hurting, we can't even identify with. So now to the young person, nobody don't care about me. I don't care about myself. So it's easy for somebody now to come along and offer them something that not is going to be productive for their development. So I'll put a gun in his hand. I'll put some drugs in his pocket. I'll put a little money in his or her pocket. And I tell them, this is what I need you to do. And unfortunately, because of the absentee and because of the dysfunction of the Black family, man, our community is like set up for that type of madness.
That's right.
Right?
Right.
Because I know when I was young, brother, public market was the place to be. So I can make a few dollars. You know what I mean? Hey, man, whatever it took.
Right, right.
So that's the nature of human beings, man. Hey, nobody don't want to be no bum. Right. Nobody, man. Because God put it in every one of us to have an impulse, to have a drive to do something for ourselves. So our young people, unfortunately, are being recruited. And so they out there hustling to bring income home. And mama haven't seen money like that.
Right.
Instead of her asking, boy or girl, where did you get this money? They're not asking them type of questions.
That's right.
Unfortunately, they are fostering that behavior, regardless to the risk of what could come to that young person. And that's what we are seeing on the streets right now.
Well, Minister Muhammad, man, talking to you right now, I have a lot of questions here. Let's just talk about the male perspective, the female perspective, and then I promise you we will segue into boys becoming men. I promise you after this question. Because I noticed we're talking about when we grow up in the hood and we grow up with certain things and we have been conditioned to do certain things. But what happens when you've been conditioned to see a woman and you see her objectively and you objectify her? And then the woman who does not want to be objectified but present herself as an object to be objectified, if you know what I mean. When the man, our young people see our women now, they see them as sexual conquest. And then our women think that they only have value with their breasts and their hips and their thighs. So how do we get our people to get away from this psychological and physical condition that's been perpetuated to them? Because we're going back to slavery. Because when they sold us into slavery, they would have the women out there butt naked and show all their extremities and made them believe that that's who they are. But then when you go to the National Football League and the NBA, when they go into trials, they do the same thing with the black man, because 80% of the NBA or the NFL is black. So they have you display your muscles, they have you display your breasts, they have you display your butt and so forth. And so how do we get to the place where we stop becoming objectified and understand there's more to me than my muscles and my speed and my body, my 36, 24, and 36?
Man, I say real simple, brother. Stop being a damn slave.
Come on now.
For the slave master.
Come on.
Because that's exactly what it is. It's perpetuating from the plantation to the NBA, to the NFL, to wherever we are at, where the enemy can make us out of a sex object.
A sex object, that's right.
Stop being a slave.
Yes.
Stop being mastered by money.
That's right.
Because, hey, look at it like this. Because if you wasn't there, they couldn't have it.
That's right.
And we proved that. We proved that over and over in history. That, hey, man, I don't need to argue with you.
That's right.
You don't want me on the bus? Fine.
Yes.
We'll carpool.
That's right.
And then master realized, oh, I need the slave now. I'm missing this money. Look, and that's what we have to go back to doing.
That's
Look,
right.
man, if Nike don't like you, then we won't wear Nike.
That's
well,
right.
Hey, look what's happening to Adidas now.
That's right.
They talking about, oh, we need to investigate what really happened with ye. Because you know why? They realizing they losing money.
Money, that's right.
So that's their little weak way of trying to ease back into ye's reality and say, you know, hey, we kind of messed up with this thing because somebody called us who doesn't like you. See, and that's what we got, and that's what Brother Yee is showing, man. We have power. Not to be a slave.
That's right.
Not to be a tool and a fool for somebody who has a scheme.
That's right.
To continue to sexualize and make us objects of pleasure, so that when we going through stuff, we want to think about that rather than following through and overcoming the difficulties that we have to face and not stooping down where it devalues us. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad hated to see a woman devalue herself. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan the same. He teaches women how to value themselves. And that's what I've been taught. I was a part of that process where I was so conditioned that all I would look upon a woman was her hips, was her bosoms, as you just eloquently said. But as I've been taught and being taught, a woman is more than that.
That's right.
And when sisters, Black women, realize their real value, they have the power to attract a man on a physical level, but you also have the power to attract a man's mind. And if his mind is not where it should be, a woman has the power to bring a man's mind up by just doing one thing: cover yourself.
That's right.
And see how he act then.
That's right.
He can't come to you if he don't see, you know, what he's seeking.
Right. That's right.
Because you force him to do right by you and to come up on the level that you are on. And unfortunately, the enemy has used our sisters because of their pain.
That's right.
And it's real, brother.
That's right.
Our women have been a target ever since we were brought to this country. They have been the target. They have paid a hellable price, man. They have bore children for men who just leave.
That's right.
Just vanish. You know. So what does that do to a child? It angers that child. And it's unfortunate, man, that a lot of our young boys, but also girls, they don't know who their father is, Brother Wayman.
That's right.
I work in the schools, and it's bad, man. And it hurts sometimes. Because the young brothers, man, they constantly be looking at me. I'm like, man, why are you looking? But they have never seen a man.
That's right. That's right.
Especially one who carries himself as a man should carry. They don't see me cussing. They don't see my pants hanging off. They see me come to work dressed appropriately and talking to them out of respect and with knowledge. And it's amazing to them because most of them don't have their fathers in their life.
Well, Minister Muhammad, let's go here because we're going to have to do a part 2 or part 3. I see it coming because when we talk about, again, going back to the Willie Lynch letter, going back to slavery, going back to being on the master's plantation, everything we say, people, we're not saying out of hate, we're saying out of love and education. So I don't want anyone to misinterpret what we're saying. We need to become knowledgeable. But now let's go back. Again, it's being said out of love. Now let's go back to the plantation, because when we go back to the conditioning of the black family, the black man only stayed with the black family as long as he was being profitable for the master. And done what the master wanted him to do to stud with this family, the master would move him to another family to stud because he can get more money for his bottom line, and so forth and so forth. Now here comes the conditioning. We don't understand that we're being conditioned indirectly by what happened back then, but it's still being perpetuated today, that now the black man is no longer in the home. The black man believes that he has to have more than one girlfriend or more than one wife. And this stuff has been going on for years because we've been conditioned to believe that through entertainment, but not only through that, but indirect conditioning as well. How do we change that conditioning where the black man values the black woman values the black man, and then the children value both parents? How do we get where it becomes, where the value system comes back into our community?
Well, I said like this, brother. The greatest institution in the black community is the black church.
Right.
It's owned by us.
That's right.
You know, and sometimes we say, well, we don't own nothing. Yes, we do.
Yes.
We own the church.
Yes.
In the mosques.
That's right.
And we have to begin to build those centers of influence up.
That's right.
You hear pastors saying now, we need more men. Well, you got to go out and recruit those men through the word of God.
That's right.
That's what Jesus did. He didn't just stay in the church. He was in the highways. He was in the byways. And when the disciples asked him, you know, how do we fish? He said, man, hey, man, cast your net.
That's right.
On the right side. So the church is the most independent institution in the black community. That's where we have to start, beloved. The mosque. We have to start there and use the church and the mosque as a framework of what family looks like. Jesus gave us that example of what family looked like. Although it is alleged that his father was not in his life, but there were those who fathered Jesus.
That's right.
He was always found among the scholars.
That's right.
And they was providing him with knowledge, but he was also providing them with insight from the Father that was teaching him. So our young people should have examples. There's no excuse for that. Because we have a lot of scholarship in the black community. We got brilliant brothers, brilliant sisters, but I want to focus on black men.
Yes.
Man, wherever I go, I'm always touched when I hear the brilliance in black men. Just at that conference we was at, and to hear the level of intelligence coming out of that room, we have the scholarship. We just got to get right with God and get right with each other as men. And those principles that Jesus taught, that Moses taught, is in the Old Testament and is in the New Testament. And I end with this. Jesus said, look, Don't even go to the altar if you got a problem with your brother.
That's right.
Whoa. What do you say? Man, he telling, man, don't come in. Don't even have a conversation with God. Right. If you got a problem, he telling you how valuable your brother is. See, this is what we got to teach in the church. And I know it's being taught. But we got to go out and get men to come in and hear the word so that they can be taught all over again. And we can begin to model what a man looks like. Our young people just need to see men, brother. Okay. And I believe the church can lead that movement now than ever, because we own the church. We own the mosque. In the mosque, in the church, we shouldn't be at odds with one another, especially if we teaching principles to make better men, to make perhaps better children, and train those children in the way of God. We shouldn't be at odds with one another. We should be applauding each other from across the street. And Jesus' disciples came to him one time, and I was reading in the Bible, they was saying, hey, master, man, we got these dudes over here. They casting out demons in your name, but they ain't with us. Right. Jesus said, as long as they doing that and they not against us, man, leave them alone. There's so many words. Man, you're focusing on the wrong thing, man. Focus on what they doing in my name. And that's all we saying, man. We got to be brothers to one another. We all have the same objective and goal, and that's to clean our community up and make it a better place for our children, for our families, and for the larger community. And that's the thing, man. You know, people are afraid of, you know, what we have to say. We ain't got no hate for you.
That's right.
We just hate what has happened to us. And we can't lie to ourselves when we're reading history.
That's right.
That's what history said. So don't accuse us of being hateful. No, like you said, we only talking about it out of love. Because love is the creative force that allows the nature of human beings to go to the next level. And I tell you, man, I have a lot of people who have respect for me. They black, they white, they brown, they red. And I got co-workers who are Caucasians. And they'll tell you, man, Minister Muhammad, one of the nicest human beings you will ever meet.
That's right.
They know what I believe in. They know the positions that I take in the community, but because they understand that I'm not talking to them just spitefully out of hate on the basis of what I know, because I can't deny what I know.
That's right. So, Minister Muhammad, I want you to talk a little bit, if you can, pertaining to your upcoming event. Tell our viewers what it's about, how to reach you, and where to go. You got as much time as you need to discuss this, from boys to men. How did you come up with that concept, from boys to men, and what was the, let's just say, the propelling force that made you want to even have this event, from boys to men?
Well, this is our second event. We held this event about, I would say, 5 to 7 years ago. And it was inspired from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But one of our great teachers in Chicago, one of our great brothers, he picked up the minister's words and just went to work with boys to men. And I was so inspired by what he was doing in Chicago. I mean, bringing out men and boys with workshops, just all towards making boys better and making men even stronger, but allowing men to also be in the same area or same atmosphere with boys. Is just a dynamic duo, so to speak. Because here's the opportunity for boys to see men. So that's why we said boys to men. Because in order for a boy to become a man, he has to see a man.
That's right.
Right? So it's a process. So we was so inspired by brother that we brought brother to Rochester to put on a conference here. And unfortunately, we didn't follow it up year after year, year after year, as we said we would do. And, so we decided that this year we had a major event in Chicago called by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on November the 5th. And nearly 3,000 Black men were at that event. It was just for men. And it was so inspiring to hear uplifting words. So we decided even before we left that we needed to do something based on what we were seeing, based on what we are hearing coming from our community, and based on my experience of working in the school and not realizing there's not enough. I'm not saying that there's not groups out there that are doing, but we need more first responders. There's only so many fire stations now in the city of Rochester where you could go so many yards and find another fire.
That's right.
So we need more to help put out this fire that is boiling now at a boiling point that it's gonna, if it's continued this way, man, who's gonna survive this thing? That's right. So we wanted to do something, and we had planned it. Our group, our brothers in our mosque, we came together. We decided this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna host the Boys to Men Conference, and we don't just want this to be a one-time thing.
Yes,
we will have follow-up after follow-up after follow-up, because we would like to call men out annually, but yet throughout the year, every quarter or every month, man, however it needs to be done, we need to do it. But we just got to kick the wheels into gear. So on December the 3rd, we decided to work with one of our great brothers who was a part of Muhammad's Mosque. He's a principal at Monroe High School, very known throughout the community, a great, great brother who has graciously opened the doors of Monroe High School so that we can host the event on December the 3rd at 2 p.m. So we're asking the brothers, the young brothers, the men as well, to come out and bring those who are tied to you. We don't want your followers. We just want to continue to inspire each other in an environment of peace so that when you leave there, you can continue to do the work that you are doing in your area, because we have to open up the floodgates now to rescue our young people and bring them off the streets, to give them something to think about and perhaps give them something to do. So we have workshops lined up. Financial literacy, we're going to talk about that, and we have presenters who are not just talking theory. These brothers are doing it. Some of them own their own business, and some of them are very successful in their fields of choice. We will talk about conflict resolution and relationships, because when I'm in the schools, I hear it all the time, man. Muhammad, I like this. Man, what do you know about a relationship?
Right.
So we're going to talk about relationships and conflict resolution. We're going to talk about how to properly defend yourself.
That's right.
You don't need a weapon. The weapon is this.
Right.
But you can use these, but you got to know how to use your hands.
That's right.
And when to use your hands. So we're going to talk about self-defense. We're going to talk about education and making the proper choices and just knowing what's out there. And so we have our brother who is the principal of Monroe High School. He's going to be one of our facilitators for the educational workshop. And so we just want to encourage young people to come and get this knowledge, but more importantly, to be in an atmosphere where you can behold the presence of your brothers.
Now, Minister Muhammad, I like everything you said, man, because guess what? I'm there. I'm going to come, because I, like you said, don't be a part of the problem, but be a part of the solution.
That's right.
And unification is so important. And I like what you're doing because they have to see real men shining and being who they really are versus what the system or what they see. Yeah. We have to come back to that family culture and that family dynamic and foundation, that was so powerful with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and a host of others that has been dismantled to a degree because it was systematic. But I will be there. So can you again tell them what time and what date and how to get in contact with you? Because I'm going to add the flyer to the edited version of this once this podcast is over, so they can know about the event that's coming up next month, which is really a couple days, not even a week away.
Week away. And so, it's once again is at Monroe High School. You can access Monroe through Averill Avenue, which is from the parking lot. And you just come straight through the doors, man. We'll be there from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. We're providing a meal, so you don't have to worry about going home to, get you something to eat. You may want to grab you some breakfast before you get to us. But we got something for you, man. We're going to feed the community. We're going to feed the brothers. And we'll be giving out souvenir items as well. So you can have some take-home material so you can continue, to chew on the experience that you're going to get. Because we just had a meeting and I said to the team, the material, the content and all of that, that's nice. Right. But I want to be able to create an environment that is conducive to Black men. Right. Because we need to feel important.
That's right.
Because we are important.
That's right.
We are an essential part of the operation. And without us, it makes it much more difficult for it to run smoothly. So we want to create that type of environment. So if you are interested, and I know the community is interested, you can contact us at noirochester.org. Shoot us an email, or you can go to our website and register in advance at noirochester.org. Register today. Register right now and get your name. I won't say in the book of life, but it's gonna be so lively that you don't want to miss this.
Yes. Well, I look forward to the event. Everyone, we want to just say thank you to my very special guest, Minister Kenneth Muhammad, from Boys to Men. It's going to be a great conference. Minister Muhammad, thank you for coming. And for those that would like to reach him, I'm going to put his contact information on the edited version of this that you can reach him. Please come out to the event. Thank you for watching the Level Up Show. I'm your host, Wayman Daniels. Minister Kenneth Muhammad, we always end with my signature trait. Sometimes we just got the smile and just go, hey. Much love, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome.
I love you, Jesus. I worship and adore you. Just want to tell you,
Lord, I love you more than anything.
Ooh, I love you, Jesus. Worship and adore you. Just want to tell you,
Lord, I love you more than anything.
I got another one. Jesus went to
Is finally over. Thank you for watching the Level Up Show. Have a great day.